On Sunday night, cries erupted in Rafah when an IDF missile struck tents housing innocent civilians, killing at least 45 people. A video from the incident, which surfaced online, showed bodies of dead Palestinians being dragged from the tents. The attack has intensified criticism of Netanyahu's Rafah offensive, placing it under global scrutiny. Many world leaders, particularly from NATO states, have questioned Israel's objectives. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, a known Hamas sympathizer, was one of the first to condemn Netanyahu. Erdogan pointed out that the attack came just days after the ICJ ordered Israel to end its military offensive, exposing what he called Israel's bloody face.
The genocidal murderers who have martyred more than 36,000 of our Palestinian brothers and sisters so far rained missiles and bombs yesterday on civilians in a refugee camp in Rafah, which they declared a safe zone. This massacre, which took place after the call of the International Court of Justice to stop the attacks, once again exposed the bloody and treacherous face of the terrorist state.
Erdogan also pointed a finger at the Israeli Prime Minister. He said that Netanyahu is using these attacks to prolong his political life, as he faces increasing pressure in Israel.
The longer Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his network of murder failed to break the heroic resistance of the Palestinian people, the more he is pushed into a corner in his country, trying to prolong his political life by shedding more blood. But he will soon see that this will not help. Just like Hitler, whom he envies, like Milosevic, like Karadzic and other pharaohs in history, he will not be able to escape being remembered with a curse.
France, a close ally of Israel, expressed outrage at the Rafah strike. French President Emmanuel Macron posted on X stating, "These operations must stop," and adding, "There are no safe areas in Rafah for Palestinian civilians. I call for full respect for international law and an immediate ceasefire." Italian Defense Minister Guido Crosetto warned that such strikes will have long-term repercussions and emphasized that Israel should differentiate between Hamas and the Palestinian people.
I have the impression that Israel with this choice is spreading hatred, rooting hatred that will involve their children and grandchildren. I would have preferred another decision. I reiterate that even though I share all the reasons that have brought them to the reaction after the shameful bloodshed and the kidnapping of the hostages by Hamas. But Hamas is something and the Palestinian people is something else. They should have used more discernment.
Spanish Foreign Minister José Manuel Álvarez Bueno condemned the attack and urged Israel to comply with the International Court of Justice's decision to halt the Rafah offensive.
I want to remind you that precautionary measures, like all decisions of the International Court of Justice, are mandatory for all parties, and that is, Israel must stop its offensive in Rafah. In the same way and with the same intensity, we condemn the rocket launches by Hamas towards Israel.
Irish Prime Minister Simon Harris, in an interview on Ireland AM, suggested that sanctions against Israel should be considered.
In relation to sanctions, I don't think anything can be off the table when it comes to Israel, particularly with what we're seeing currently happening in Rafah now, when we're seeing the international community being ignored, when we're seeing international courts being ignored.
Qatar, a key mediator in the Israel-Hamas ceasefire negotiations, warned that the Rafah casualties would complicate the ongoing talks. Egypt and Jordan, which made peace with Israel decades ago, also condemned the strike. The European Union's foreign policy chief, Josep Borrell, criticized the airstrike, highlighting its defiance of the recent International Court of Justice ruling. "I condemn this in the strongest terms. It proves that there is no safe place in Gaza, and these attacks take place immediately after the International Court of Justice ordered it to stop all military activities in Gaza." The global backlash from heads of state shows that Israel is now under immense pressure to conduct the Rafah operation appropriately if it continues. This attack, along with the IDF's history of bombing aid workers, has weakened Israel's and Netanyahu's positions, all which require careful navigation.